the 7 o'clock version of this. This is an important subject. Talk about work zone safety. Is that all working for you, Brent?
Looks like it's working.
Okay, we're good to go.
All right, well, hello everybody, good morning. We're going to talk about work zone safety, and as we go through this training, I want you to just think for a little bit about where you work. Think about the places where you're working in, the different hazards that might be around you, the different conditions you're in. It could be in a workshop, it could be out on a roadway project or in a street or in an office, wherever it is. Think about the places you put yourself and think about hazards around you. We're going to go through some things here that we can use to kind of increase awareness about the things that we do and how to keep ourselves safe, how to avoid injury and accident. And, you know, sometimes we go throughout the day and we're working on things and we don't realize that our life is on the line. And sometimes we need to realize that we could really be taking some chances. We could be putting ourselves at risk and not considering the consequences of things. And we just don't want to take chances on that. You know, if you think about it, the most important thing is our life and our safety, and it's not coming to work and getting hurt. And so we want to look at things today that we can learn to watch for, how to keep ourselves and our coworkers safe on the job. As far as our work zone, our workspace, and things all around us. But think about this. Rule number one here is really protect yourself. If you're finding yourself in a situation where something just doesn't seem quite right, maybe there's some hazards around that you're recognizing, maybe it's not going as planned, you're on a job and it's just not working out the way it should. Maybe we need to just take a little bit of a step back and realize that, you know what, the number one most important thing is really my life and my safety. And the rule is, you know, when in doubt, get out. You can always replace material, you can replace equipment. You know, if those kind of things get broken, that can easily be replaced. But what can't be replaced is your life and your health and your safety. So always remember that. That is rule number one, keeping yourself safe. If you go through your work zone, think about this just for a minute. What's in your workspace? What kind of things do you do on a daily basis or a weekly basis? Or what are you around today right now? What kind of hazards are out there? Are there holes that you could fall in? Is there something that you could cut yourself on? Is there any sharp object or material that could fall over? Any kind of pressurized system that you're working around? Whatever it is, think of those hazards and try to identify those things that could lead to an accident or injury. Think about those spaces now. What kinds of things have happened in the past? Have people been injured? What has caused injuries in the past, and what things do we really need to watch for at this time? Maybe there's been some near misses that have happened, some close calls, things that might have turned out bad, but we got lucky. And just look for those things. Is your workplace going well? Is everything taken care of? Are all the hazards managed? Or are you just being lucky? Are you just kind of getting by and you've seen things over and over and it just hasn't caught up to you yet? Think about those things. Think about what could be the next big thing that could lead to an accident or injury. Think about what you can do now in your work zone, in your workspace. Think about those things that you can do to protect yourself there. And that's really the goal of this, to think through these things and think about the hazards that we work around on a daily basis. So let's look at heavy equipment. This is one of the biggest hazards. You might see these on pipeline projects or construction projects or maybe out on the sides of roadways. This could be a track hoe or a backhoe or a large truck, any type of big heavy equipment. The key here is we don't want to get in the way of those things. They move really quick, they can spin around, and there's really no reason to sometimes be close enough that we could get hit by one. But sometimes we find ourselves in a bad situation. There's been employees that have found themselves too close to equipment. They've rotated, they've hit them, and there's been people lose their lives from being around large heavy equipment. And so we want to realize that it's not worth that chance, right? It's not worth risking your life and compromising your own safety to be too close if you don't have to be. And so one of the keys here with heavy equipment is always remember to maintain eye contact with the operator. If you can't see him, then he can't see you. And you want to make sure that if you're ever approaching equipment or if you're in the vicinity, make sure they see you. Wave your hands, get their attention, make sure that they wave back, and don't get in a bad situation where you could be out of contact with them and they don't know you're there. Could lead to a really bad situation. So always be aware with that heavy equipment. Learn to watch for those things and keep a safe distance away. One of the things to look at with heavy equipment is the swing radius. You know, this track hoe in the picture, it can swing around really fast. The operator may not see you, and if you happen to be within zone like this guy is here in the picture, it could turn out to be a really bad situation. So think about that arm on that track hoe and think about that bucket. Think about how far that could extend out away from the base of that equipment. you know, there's your radius, is that far distance, and then draw a circle around that equipment would be your swing radius. And so you don't want to find yourself in that zone where you could be hit by that or crushed by that or have a problem with material falling on you. If possible, stay out of the way and stay clear. Make sure that operator can see you, that there's no problem there within that zone, in that work zone. And looking at equipment, there's lots of things we can look at, but they have a lot of blind spots on them. The design of the equipment, the way that the mirrors angle out, the design of the cab. Sometimes there's structures that block the view, and sometimes those operators can't see behind them or can't see what's to the side of them. And so you don't want to find yourself in a bad situation. If they're moving around or backing up, you don't want to be in that area. And looking at a typical minivan, you could have a driver in the minivan, and you could put a cone 15 feet behind that minivan, and you may not even see that cone until 15 feet back. And so if they were to back up and you were standing there, they may not even know that you're in the area. And looking at other equipment like the utility trucks and other vehicles like that, they may have equipment in the back or even pulling a trailer. Sometimes they just can't see behind them. And some of these could be up to 40 or 50 feet behind that truck to where they could see an object on the ground. And so realize that the design of the equipment and the angle of view sometimes for that operator is really difficult to see you or other things on the job site. So don't put yourself in a bad situation. Don't get in a spot where they can't see you and where you're out of sight. Best practices for this, you can put in backup alarms, you put in cameras, maybe have a spotter or a supervisor on site to keep people out of the way. But it's critical that we're aware of our surroundings, that we're not getting ourselves too close to equipment and causing a problem there. One of the other best practices for job sites that people do is setting up barricades, securing that work zone and keeping employees out of the way so there's no hazard going on for the hazards to the public or to the coworkers or other people in the area. One of the best things here is setting up some caution tape. Put up barricades. Some yellow caution tape is a good way to indicate that there's some hazardous work going on in the area, and that's something you may want to consider doing. If you've got overhead work and there's potential for falling objects, or there's maybe an open trench or some kind of hazard there, you may want to just tape that off so people know that it's not a place they should be going, to keep them out of the way. You could even do danger tape, the red danger tape, and the difference between yellow tape and red tape is the yellow tape is a caution. It's to warn you and let you know that there's something hazardous there, and you can cross it, but it's kind of a warning that it's there. Whereas the danger tape, the red tape, means you don't cross. That means there's a hazard going on, there's a job going on, and you're not allowed to cross that red tape without authorization. So just putting those up as a barricade, good warning, taping things off is a good way to keep people out of the way, to keep yourself out of harm's way and watch for your coworkers. Even signage. Signage is a good thing you could put up to warn people of the potential falling objects or overhead work ahead, or some kind of signage to notify others that there's work going on in the area is a really good practice to do. And so we recommend you do that. Communication is a big deal. When you're on a job site, you may have coworkers working in different places. You may have equipment operators. There may be things going on around you, and it's important to just talk with each other. Let each other know if there's something that's changed. Maybe there's a vault that's open and you've got a lid open now. Just telling your coworkers that say, hey, we've got a vault open, watch yourself, watch your step. Something as simple as that, and notifying each other can really raise that awareness and elevate that so that there's no surprise hazards there. But that advanced warning can really help each other out if you just talk through things and communicate. So that's a big thing there. On projects, it's great to have a confident person. You need somebody on the site who knows how to recognize hazards, who has authority to take care of the safety hazards and can take action and correct those and keep people safe. OSHA requires that you have a confident person on 3 different kinds of scenarios. One is when there's trenching and excavation. Before anybody goes into that confident person needs to be on the site making sure that that's going safe. The other is a confined space entry, and the other is in scaffold erection when you're setting up scaffolding. And OSHA actually requires that a person there with knowledge and authority is overseeing that work, making sure that it's all going safe and well and being done right. But in addition to that, obviously we recommend having a supervisor on site, even if it's not these types of specific work, just any job, if it's any project or task or some kind of thing going on. You want to make sure there's someone there that has that knowledge and authority, that knows how to take action and keep everybody safe there on the job site. So consider that. And then staying visible. You know, you think about working around moving vehicles or moving equipment, whether it's on a roadway project or maybe you're putting in a pipeline or you're digging a trench. It's important to have your reflective clothing on there. You would want at a minimum a Class 2 reflective vest, and if you're doing highway work or other things, it may also require a Class 3 reflective vest, but at a minimum a Class 2 is what you're going to want to have. And realize that it's important to have that vest on because you need to be seen. You need to be seen by the operators and the equipment that's moving around. Sometimes there's this hidden danger where if you're out of sight of the operator and you're off around a corner where no one would expect you to be, sometimes there could be some real hazards with that. Sometimes workers are working in one location and you don't want to find yourself walking off by yourself and being away from the group because the operator or equipment may not see you either. And so it's important to think about where you're putting yourself. Think about the hazards in the places you're walking, the places you're going. You want to stay out in the open. You want to stay visible and not be hidden away from things that could cause a problem there. So visibility is a big deal. Yeah.
Hey, Brent. I'm sorry, I didn't catch you in between subjects with a question. Debbie asked about is there a common way for operators to notify on-ground folks, like grounding the blade or the boom? And I responded to her, but I thought it was a good enough question that maybe we ought to talk about that. And just and she's absolutely right when it comes to if an operator's on a piece of equipment and somebody wants to come up and talk or needs to work in the area, there needs to be some communication there. That the operator knows they're there and is giving them permission to come. And so one of the things that's important is to ground the equipment. Any implements that are in the air, set that on the ground. Isolate those controls or secure the controls. Take your hand off the controls, and then let that person know that it's safe to enter that area. So there's communication. Anyway, just wanted to bring that up when we were still kind of close to what you talked about.
Yeah.
Anything to add on that?
Definitely a good point. And I like the idea of just waving back and forth. If the person approaching the equipment can wave at the operator and get their attention, and then the operator acknowledges back and waves back, you know that you're in contact. You know that each other's there and are on the same page as far as that goes. So definitely some good points there.
Standard hand signals.
Yeah, hand signals and just waving, making sure each other's there. Yeah. All right, so make sure you're visible. You don't want to be surprised and have something catch you off guard there. Wear those vests. That's what it's there is to protect you. And along with other protective equipment, personal protective equipment is a big deal. We need to make sure we have the things that we need as we're working on different jobs throughout the day. Think about the tasks you have. You might want gloves. This guy's checking out his gloves, making sure they fit right and that they're going to do what they need. But does he need safety glasses? He possibly would on a job like this. At a minimum, you should have your PPE readily available. It should be possibly a hard hat, reflective vest, gloves, glasses, maybe even steel-toe boots and hearing protection. Those are kind of the minimum things that you would want to have available. But based on the task and the type of work that you do, you may want to have other things, other types of equipment to protect you. And the key is use it. It only works when you wear it, and that's what it's really intended for. So it doesn't do you any good to leave your gear in your truck or leave it at the office or in the shop. You need it where you're doing your job and doing your work. And the key is, if you wear it, that's what it's there to do, is protect you. So make sure that you do that. Always have it with you. Always be ready to wear that. One of the best things that we see that people do is do regular inspections. It's one of the best ways to identify hazards, whether that's a daily thing or a weekly thing based on the job you're doing. That's a great way to identify what could go wrong and use that checklist to run through those things that you can check on to make sure that it's all safe and ready to go. Some jobs require this. There's some OSHA requirements, such as with excavations and trenching. They will actually require a daily inspection by a competent person. Other jobs as well may require that, but at a minimum, depending on what you're doing, you're going to want to have someone go throughout the day, whether it's a supervisor or assigned person, to go through and just make sure that everything's good to go and in place for as far as the safety and hazards are controlled there. And look at your workplace. Think about the shops you work in or the buildings or You know, if it's outside near pressurized systems or piping or near equipment, whatever that is, think about those other hazards that can be in the areas you're working. Think about where you're storing materials. Is it possible for those things to fall off the shelves or tip over or cause hazard with that? Think about chemicals you work around. How do you handle those and how do you store those? Electricals everywhere. In all the buildings we work around and in shops, there could be some hazards with that. Fall hazards, trip, slip, fall, these are all things that we see that are some of the biggest hazards in our work areas, and we need to watch for that. The key is if you're going around and you're doing your inspections and you're going throughout the day, if you see something and something's out of place or doesn't look right or there's a problem, take time to fix it. Don't just walk by it and leave it for the next guy. Take the initiative to correct those hazards. As far as chemicals go, this guy's doing a really good job of, you know, he's got his apron and gloves and goggles and face shield on. Those are really good. But think about the chemicals that you have. Do you need any kind of special protective equipment for that? Do you have all that you need? Do you know what's required for certain chemicals that you're working around? Check your labels. Are they being used properly? Are they being stored properly? Chemicals are one of those things you want to make sure you're definitely protected on and handling correctly. And electrical. A lot of times it's the complacency that gets people. Sometimes they'll bypass something or they'll take a shortcut or they'll recognize a hazard and they think that's okay or they just let it go, and it's that complacency that ends up catching them. So don't be like this guy and get in the path of a circuit and get a new hairstyle over this. It's not worth taking that hazard and becoming part of that circuit and being in the line of that. So make sure that you're respecting electricity. If you see maybe wires hanging out of a wall, an outlet that's not working right, breakers that are tripping or any other kind of electrical hazard, take time to look over those things and inspect it. Make sure that you eliminate those problems because you don't want to catch yourself in a bad spot and get hurt there from that situation. Look at housekeeping. Look at the places you work. Are your walkways clear? Are they free of debris and free of things to trip on, like maybe hoses or cords or boxes or objects, whatever it is? Keep your place clean and picked up so that you're not having those problems to trip over and have access issues. We see a lot of people get hurt just from a simple slip, trip, and fall. We see claims on this come through. It could be as simple as ice. It could be objects they're tripping over, maybe even walking downstairs. There's been some serious accidents from people getting hurt on these things. And so we need to keep our awareness up and always be vigilant to look for those things to keep our walkways clear as we're going through. Another big thing that we see is 3 points of contact. People getting in and out of equipment on a job site, getting in and out of a truck, trailer, coming down stairways, not having 3 points of contact and falling and getting hurt severely. So make sure that you're using 3 points of contact where you can to keep yourself safe there. Emergency equipment's another thing. This could be on any job. It could be in a building, even on your projects outside where you're working. You're going to want to have the equipment ready to go. So do your weekly checks on that to make sure that you have a fire extinguisher ready, that it's ready to use. What about first aid kit? Do you have one nearby? Is it full of supplies? And when was the last time it was checked? Those are things to check on. Keep your exit signage and emergency lighting and exit paths clear. You want to have all that ready to go if there ever was an emergency on the job that you're working on. So think about your work zone. Those are kind of some things to look for. Different hazards, different ways of going about correcting hazards. But also important is taking care of yourself, right? Taking care of your body. And in the morning, sometimes it takes a while for your body to wake up and get going. And especially in this time of year with colder weather, our muscles can tighten up and it's important to get stretched out. And so just some simple stretching and warming, getting oxygenated and getting the blood flowing in the morning can make you feel a lot better. And it can prevent that injury. It can prevent that possible strain or sprain if you take time to warm up and do it right. So before you go lifting something heavy or getting into hard work or doing tasks for the day, just take a little bit of time and warm up and stretch. It might really prevent an accident or injury down the road. Think about your posture. This looks very uncomfortable for this person sitting at their workstation leaning forward. Doesn't look good, and over time, if you sit in positions like that and you're not moving around and doing different things, if you're in a static position for a long time, it can lead to sprains and strains. And so the recommendation is that you get up and move around, that you do different things, that you find positions and postures that are comfortable for you without excessive force or twisting or doing things that can really hurt you. And so find what's best for you. find a good position, a good posture, something that can help you to prevent accident and injury. And with any type of work that we do, we never want to get distracted. You think about the tasks that you do, there might be hazards you work around or processes. You don't want to lose your focus and take any chance on compromising your life and safety. Sometimes that simple distraction from everything we have to do on a daily basis, whether it's maintaining productivity or meeting a budget, even taking our focus away from things at home, whatever's going on. Don't let those things become a problem where it compromises what you're doing, that you lose focus and put yourself in a bad situation. Always stay focused, be aware of the things around you and keep that awareness up. Those things are what's going to keep you safe on a daily basis. But in summary today, we talked about several things. We talked about what's in your work zone. And just think about that. Think about where you go. Think about the jobs that you do, the tasks that you have on a daily basis. Think about those risks you might be taking and potential consequences. Sometimes it's not worth it. It's not worth taking those extra chances. It's not worth cutting corners because things can catch up to you in the long run. So take a look around. Look at your workspaces. See if there's any hazards. See if any of these things are standing out to you. See what you can do to make it a little safer for yourself and others around you. It will make a big difference. Just protect yourself. It's really your life. And if you think about it, think about what's most important. What's most important to you? Really the most important thing is you living out your life, keeping yourself safe, staying healthy, living a good life. That's really the most important thing. None of us want to come to work each day and come in and get an injury and have some kind of pain or disability for the rest of our life. And so always keep that in mind. Think about that, the most important thing to you. It's really critical that we do that and keep ourselves safe on a daily basis. And that's really the message there. So any questions that you see coming in, Jason?
No, I think we covered them there. Looks good. Doug, did you have anything to add?
No, that was great. Really well done. Maybe I just add, listen to your body, when you're out there working throughout the day. Sometimes we may not be doing anything wrong at all, but if we overdo it, then we can get hurt. So, listen to your body. Are you feeling any cramps or muscle fatigue? Things like that, maybe a signal to get a little break, get hydrated, warm up and stretch out again like Brent was talking about. But it's really important, I think, to make sure we're listening to our bodies as well as being aware of what's going on around us and following those safety rules that we need to remember every day.
All right, great. Brent, final word.
That's it. Thanks, everybody. Keep yourself safe out there.
All right, folks, just remember, Doug's going to be presenting on incident investigation here in just about a half hour. So if you haven't signed up, send me an email right now, jason@utahtrust.gov, and we'll get you signed up. Thanks, folks. Have an awesome day.